Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Crypto News Podcast. It's your host, Matt Zahab, and we have a treat of a guest on the docket today. One of the best dressed men in crypto, and clearly gets the black t-shirt gang motto, as we're both rocking black tees. Unplanned. I think it's probably the 5th, 6th, 7th time that my lovely guest has been matching style. I mean, he's got a better hat than I do, but c'est la vie. And for the listeners who are just tuning in, do go check out this YouTube, as this will be a treat as well. Time for the intro here. Today we have JD Seraphine on the show, founder and CEO of Raiinmaker. Prior to this, he founded Vision Tree with the sole purpose of transforming our culture and changing the world for better through media and tech. He has 16 years of experience in the entertainment industry, started in television, working in production on the hit show 24, and went to finance and produce a number of projects, including Hesher, starring Natalie Portman and Joseph Gordon-Levitt. Huge stars. He also directed the groundbreaking doc series Open Source Money, about the rise of Disney-incubated blockchain company Dragonchain and the global evolution of crypto and blockchain. A true film and entertainment guy, jumping into the Web3 space, now moving and grooving, where Raiinmaker is one of the fastest growing Web3 powered apps designed for the social creator economy. If you're into AI, if you're into DePIN, and if you're into anything creator related, this is going to be an absolute treat. JD, welcome to the show, my friend. Pumped to have you on.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Matt. I'm definitely the best dressed guy in crypto. Come on, I don't know what to say. One of the most.
Hey, we've had some pretty fire fits on the pod so far.
Yeah,
gotta give a shout out to Brock Pierce. I'm sure you're aware Brock Pierce is, head to toe, just balling out of control. We've had some ballers come on. And
Brock's got some good fits, and he's an old buddy of mine. Actually, from my early days in crypto, I think I was fortunate. Even being on the west side of LA, it's not not as strong as it once was, but there was a really strong crypto community here when I first joined the space in 2017. So like Brock, Scott Walker, like a number of people in the space, was just fortunate to have a lot of those folks around as I was diving in full speed, and they were able to kind of help me, at least guide me in the direction. I think part of a journey, when everybody has their story of what brought them in, and once they came in, what kind of moved them and what inspired them, and then what direction they decided to go. And so for me, it was a very unique journey. It's been a unique journey over the last 7 years.
I love it. Let's jump right back into creating movies, TV shows, film, working in the entertainment industry. When you're at a campfire or at a dinner or wherever you are, and someone asks what you do and you tell them, I'm sure you get asked all the time, what are some of your best stories, JD? And I'm going to throw that ball over to your court. What are some of the best stories, funny, interesting, weird, that you might have from your time creating incredible films and TV shows?
Well, it's funny because my thing is, as you said in the bio, my real passion is around creating impact in the world. However I'm contributing to help humanity make an evolutionary leap, that's ultimately the goal. I think when I got in entertainment, when I first, got out of college, I guess it was 20 plus years ago now, dating myself, I looked at that cultural battleground, that idea that, that battle of ideas that we're basically going to shape the world. That's what brought me into the entertainment industry. So worked on a number of amazing projects, but I'd say the campfire story has to be the alien conspiracy documentary that I produced and co-directed called Sirius, like the star. And so it's funny. There's a researcher named Dr. Stephen Greer, who your folks may know, and Dr. Greer and I go back to the days of working on that project, which was 12 years ago. He wasn't quite as famous as he's become now. We've, I think, had a little hand in helping him to get on that path. Again, he was well known, but an older guy that didn't really have much of a digital presence. So we crowdfunded the entire budget for this feature documentary, raised $500,000, which is the most successful crowdfunded history for a feature documentary, I think, still today, except for I think the only projects that have raised more are the other projects he's done kind of using the same machine we built.
Was this the good old days of Indiegogo or Indiegogo? I believe?
Yeah, Indiegogo. Well, this is the very beginning of Kickstarter. Literally, Kickstarter was early days. And we actually raised money between half on our own, or actually most on our own platform. And then we also were raising on Kickstarter. We were kind of A/B testing, which,
nice.
When people go to the platform that was trusted, that had a name, because Kickstarter was still pretty well known, even though it was early. Or would they go where we drove them? And obviously we found is they went where we drove them. The most interesting thing about those, first 24 hours, 40 hours, we raised $200,000. Boom, it just like a rocket took off. And we knew we had done the research and kind of laid the groundwork effectively. But the coolest part about the whole thing was we released the movie in 11 and a half months from launch of crowdfund to like release, subtitled in 17 languages, direct to consumer transactional VOD release. So that means
that's quick, no?
Yeah, it's very quick. And users basically paying to rent the film on their computers, mobile devices. I mean, people could watch it on Facebook. So we licensed this technology, and we did over $1 million in sales in the first 2 weeks, basically tracking every sale in real time, collecting 80% of every dollar. So what's interesting is that was with zero marketing budget. So it was 100% community driven marketing. And that was kind of my first real glimpse into like, wait, in this new digital world that we're building, there's the ability to like harness community in a new and powerful way. And then I started thinking a lot about like, what is the value that an individual human represents in the digital world? And coming out of that, then we got into like all the scandals around Cambridge Analytica and our data and Facebook. And people started to become more aware of like, wait, all this data I'm generating on these apps that I think are great and free and that I love, there's actually a price that I'm paying, whether I know it or not. And so I think that's, as I got into the came in touch with crypto and blockchain, I was like, wait, now I see, as I look around the world and I see what happened with Sirius, which is like where we had this crazy performance. And I always like envisioned, I was like, man, if there was some way that we could have been able to distribute like fractional value, like back to the individual user in our community. We didn't think of it as fractional, but be able to give them like a piece of what we made, because they helped us to drive that success. But there wasn't a system designed, or one that the SEC would let us roll out either, by the way, that would have made it easy for us to say, okay, you guys created this value, we're going to distribute a piece of it to you. And so I think when you take a step back, well, what is the blockchain revolution all about, right? When you really like go big picture, like zoom out 10,000 feet, it's transforming the way that value is created and the way it's distributed. And so, and if you look at that formalization of informal value, one of those areas that's most obvious is like when it comes to like fans and community, right? And saying there's all this informal value that's just kind of floating around in the world and it's not properly being harnessed or captured. So that's really kind of like transitioning full circle. As I was creating Raiinmaker and launching the company in 2018, I mean, literally I've been at it for 6 years, which in crypto years is like 60. This was like center to like my, my focus was my experience coming off Sirius, 6 years before, was like, wait, okay, there's this model where you can take these ingredients and be able to harness community in a new and powerful way. But how do we do it in a way that they're able to get their fair share? And so essentially that was what inspired the creation of Raiinmaker in the early days.
I love that. So that must have been, obviously, that was, I guess, one of the biggest, if not the biggest catalyst for you creating Raiinmaker and sort of realizing the potential of blockchain, crypto, Web3. It was the ability to like harness the power of community, harness the power of distribution, and remove the middleman, which especially in your field, being, the entertainment industry, up until 15, 20 years ago, and more so, the last 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years, that was impossible. Like you had to go through, same as the music industry, part of the entertainment industry, you got to go through the label, you got to go through the production company. It was a shit show and still is. And I assume this was the thing that sort of kicked off Raiinmaker and Vision Tree.
It's still broken. The system around, I mean, music has kind of been lucky in the sense that because of the smaller file sizes, the digital disruption hits harder and sooner. And I think there's been more time to adapt and evolve. It's interesting is in terms of content, not to go too far away from Sirius. What I'll say on the campfire sense is there's a real alien being in it, or it wasn't a real. We did the genetic testing, and it turned out it was, over time, they figured out it was human. We had this Atacama humanoid. The movie went viral. I mean, it's cool. It's a cool doc to watch. There's certain challenges that we had in making it, even in us pushing it out, which I won't get into because I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. But it was an amazing experience, and it did inform me about the potential for new models like this. And as we got into doing Raiinmaker, we still own a media company. We still own Vision Tree. I'd say 90+% of my focus is on Raiinmaker and AI and Web3 technology, because just the passion that we have for the stuff we're building product-wise there is really kind of necessitating, as a founder, my focus be there. But one of the main projects we still have on the media side is a project called Atari. So our company, back in 2017, we acquired from Paramount the rights to this project that's basically Nolan Bushnell's biopic. So Nolan's like the founder of Atari, and he's not not just the godfather of the video game industry, but he's really arguably one of the godfathers of the whole digital technology revolution. So Steve Jobs and Wozniak worked at Atari before they created Apple. The parts for the first Apple computers came from the Atari factory. So it's like this guy Nolan is like, he had people like, smoking weed in the factory. They didn't have to wear suits. It was like the first time. And this is so 1970s Silicon Valley. Imagine, like basically like hippies and just wild. Like it's basically the movie that we acquired from Paramount, which we're producing with Leonardo DiCaprio and his production company, Appian Way, is essentially like Wolf of Wall Street meets The Social Network. So we acquired this project. And as we were looking at, okay, how are we going to bring this to market? The first thing I thought about was Sirius. And I was like, okay, what I've always wanted to do is figure out if there's a way we can engage the 3 billion gamers around the world in a unique way and use them to help drive the performance of this bigger movie, the same way that we did with the Alien Conspiracy doc. So it was really like, that was like the inspiration to actually bring me into crypto in the beginning. And then people like Brock and others that were around that just happened to be, I was connected to through kind of my entertainment technology circles in LA, started like bring me, quickly to like kind of the edge of what was happening. And I was like, okay, this is bigger than just our movie that we were working on Atari. But it's like, this has the potential to power what I call the solution revolution, which is this idea that humans in a decentralized way all over the world solving major problems, in our own areas is how we actually turn this thing around for humanity and the planet. So that's where, like, when I saw that potential blockchain, I was like, this is it. There's nothing bigger than this for me now. And so, we went all in and started building everything we started building with Raiinmaker.
I love it. Well, let's jump into it. Tell me about Raiinmaker. What exactly you guys do? I mean, you guys do a whole lot of things. Like, you do a shitload, and not just, a lot of stuff in crypto is maybe not the most real world. This is about as real world as it gets, empowering creators, really, leveling down and hammering in the importance of KYC, know your customer, which is, again, just paramount for any type of personalized data collection. Like DePIN, like I said, a bunch of AI stuff as well. I'm going to throw the ball over to you. Give us sort of the elevator pitch, and then we'll hammer down a couple of the more niche points.
Yeah, it's interesting. Rainmaker's evolved a lot in the course of the last 6 years. But the core thesis really hasn't changed. So what is the value of our relationship or connection, Matt, in the digital world? When you and I converse and we transact, we create this video, we put it out, you have your podcast, you have your connections with your friends and your family. Those interactions, are valuable. And up until, even like 5-6 years ago, there wasn't even an idea that there could be any other way other than for the largest, like, centralized, like, kind of tech, oligopoly, to basically monetize or leverage the value of those interactions for their own gain. And again, I'm one of those people, I have a pretty moderate view of that. Like, I don't fault them. I mean, they grew a company, they scaled technology, they brought products to the world that changed the way that we live. A lot of times for the better, not always. But again, that's the nature of the beast. And as someone who's a founder that's built products and technology and brought it to market and understands the challenge of that, I'm not one of those people that's like, oh, evil big tech company. Like, that's not the way that I see the dynamic of the situation. But what I do see is that there's an opportunity to empower people, the individual human. What is the value that we represent in the digital world? And what is the value of our interactions? So that was at the core and is still at the core of Raiinmaker today. So we started focused on social media and that creator economy, and developed an algorithm that was essentially called proof of influence, which was tracking the value. Let's just say Matt engages in a campaign with something he's passionate about. He's posting on social media. What is the value of that organic media he's creating, or that word of mouth marketing? So we started there, evolved over time. And about 3 years ago, when the AI technology has been around for a long time in various forms. I was working on stuff in the entertainment space going back to 2012 and 2013 around this Department of Defense technology, LiDAR, radar, stuff for like basically mapping the mouth and synthesizing language. I mean, literally 12 and 13 working with people at Singularity University and NASA on stuff like this. So it's been around a long time, but obviously 3 years ago, we saw this exponential explosion, right? We all saw it and started to touch it. And anybody who came in and looked at it was like, okay, this is going, just like crypto and blockchain is going to change the way that value is created and distributed. AI is going to transform the capability of what we can create as individual humans. Now, the ability for an individual human to create anything they want.
The barrier is so low. The friction has been removed. It's pretty friggin' easy to create really good shit. And like you spoke about earlier in the pod, distribution, which AI and crypto is really allowed to take off. There's distribution as well now. I don't need to go to look at the podcast, like it's pretty easy now.
Yeah, exactly. So we pivoted about 3 years ago, focused in two main areas. One is, adding AI generative art content creation capabilities, so stable diffusion models to our mobile app, to Raiinmaker, which to date is 100,000 plus downloads, iOS, Android. Anybody listening, you can go download the app and play around with it. We also incorporated in the last 6-7 months the ability for users to start to train AI in the app. So that's using annotation and data labeling to provide human feedback to train those stable diffusion models, to become more intelligent, to essentially start to quantify. Again, we start with that central premise. What is the value of that individual in the digital world? Well, if the AI models are going to power the future economy, and the economy of literally like today and tomorrow, not like years from now, like now, it's really about the quality of the data they're being trained with. And as we start to build out a system that can say, okay, Matt's data is training this model, my data is training that model, there's a value to that. How do we make sure that there's some attribution of sorts, so that maybe there's some sort of remuneration or some sort of value that can flow back to me? And B, how do we also look at the provenance of that data and the quality, right? And understanding like, okay, the quality of the model is going to be directly correlated to the quality of the data, and which is also directly correlated to the quality of the source, which comes back to the human, right? So essentially the two things we pivoted on 3 years ago was aggressively pivoting into AI and how can we, bring it into our product stack and tech stack. And then also we started building out a protocol. So basically my CTOs built a few protocols previously. We architected and then launched the Raiinmaker Network protocol, which launched testnet a year ago, actually at East Toronto, which we're going to be at coming up here shortly.
Oh, I'll see you this week. By the time this episode airs, this airs on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I'll see you there.
Yeah, so I'll be there, and I think I'm speaking on the second day in the morning there. And I love Tracy's an old friend, and she's amazing. I think it's one of the best conferences in the world. Like people don't, if you haven't been, it's an amazing conference. But we launched testnet a year ago there, and we're able to see amazing traction. Up to date, we're over 200,000 validator nodes in the network. I think we're at 60,000 plus that have KYC'd. So like, again, being able to separate people who are using bots and things to spin up, nodes to just try to mine as many tokens as they can, which is part of the game in crypto. You have to know that if you're going to launch a product, people are going to game it. They're going to try to, maximize the benefit they get from it. So you have to just, again, for us, we're saying our network is focused on the quantifiable value of human contribution to AI models, to AI infrastructure, to an AI future. That's really Raiinmaker's core focus today. And so, like I said, mainnet launched, I guess about 6 weeks ago now. Again, 200,000 plus nodes, millions of transactions, and then working on those next versions of, every aspect of the ecosystem. So from the DePIN validator node infrastructure. So, not focusing on DePIN that is the same as some of the other decentralized AI projects. So we're not like focused on internet of GPUs or things that, where there's like seven competitors all kind of doing similar things, which I think there's a value to experiment there. For us, we're more interested in more of a lightweight DePIN, I guess you'd call it, focused on human contributions, data labeling, training, things like that. So there's some cool stuff we're experimenting there. A lot of stuff we haven't announced yet that's coming here quickly. And then just, again, playing with this idea of being that scalable infrastructure to facilitate, the next generation of AI innovation, on our network.
I love that. I want to keep buzzing on DePIN for a second. I know you guys are obviously very intertwined with both DePIN and AI, but DePIN, I think it's awesome. I do think we have a couple, maybe not a couple of years, but definitely at least, another year or two until it really, really starts, popping off, as it's still so new. And to my knowledge, really only people in crypto are pretty cognizant of DePIN. Otherwise, it's just one of those sort of far-fetched ideas that the Gen Pop and the Web tours will finally be cognizant of and will recognize. But I'd love if you could explain more about how you guys are using DePIN. Maybe just give a quick refresher for the listeners, what exactly DePIN is, how it allows people to use their own data, computing power, driving data. It's really just data and computing power at the end of the day, but how they can use those two things to, to profit in some capacity and to help companies grow.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously DePIN is an acronym for anyone who's never heard it before. It's just Decentralized Physical Infrastructure Network. So, I mean, you could look at Bitcoin network as like the most powerful DePIN on the planet. In terms of compute power, it's like, there's nothing that touches what Bitcoin can do. And that's why a lot of people you'll see kind of arguing or talking about, hey, like what can we also do on even Bitcoin, right? There's all this computation happening. Is there a way to direct that towards some other, valuable aims? But yeah, again, our focus is more on, lightweight applications of DePIN, stuff that can run on even mobile devices. So even right now on the Raiinmaker app, when you download the app, it says become a validator. When you do that, it's actually deploying a validator client on your mobile device. And whenever using the application, it's looking at the network and the ability to not only validate transactions and sign blocks, but also if there's any, like say, model training or other, AI computational tasks, or the ability to provide any sort of value to what's happening on the network, that's all happening in the background without you needing to have technical knowledge or really any skill whatsoever. It's just that's like anyone on the planet with a mobile device connected to the internet can run a DePIN validator node on Raiinmaker. Really that simple.
Cool.
And the next versions of it we're focused on again is like, what's the unique value that can represent, versus other projects that are more focused on stuff that's like bare metal servers running in data centers and, stuff that has a much greater level of computational power, but is not like, again, I'm down to that value of the individual human. Again, coming back to the core thesis that we started with 6 years ago, we haven't deviated from that. We've deviated in terms of how do we productize that thesis and that vision, and we pivoted, a million times, right? And I think as a small company, you have to. We're still pivoting, even around the experimentation of DePIN. There's stuff we're doing that nobody's ever done before that, as we're going in to like map stuff out and experiment with our engineers, they're like, oh, we don't even know, blah, 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 blah. And we hit a wall. And sometimes it takes us like a week, 10 days, 2 weeks to figure out, oh, wait, what if we did it, and then we kind of move around and find that right path. So honestly, the DePIN stuff is super early days and very experimental, but I think it's exciting because honestly, like where we're headed, we know there's kind of things are coming to a head with, both more with crypto before, but now I feel like AI is kind of stolen the spotlight around like environmental footprint, being a thing, right? And so I think we're going to have to look for creative ways to be able to support the demands of the AI infrastructure that's coming. Like even AI infrastructure right now is early days. So what's going to happen once it really scales? If people don't like the environmental footprint now, how are they going to feel 5 years from now? It's going to be exponentially higher. Exactly. So I think we have to be thinking creatively about, how are we supporting, that AI infrastructure from a computational standpoint as well from a data standpoint. And then I think you even go a step further and say, well, how do we make sure that in that future that we're building towards, that humans still have a place, and then how do we even, to go one step beyond that, say, well, how do we ensure that AI is imbued with enough humanity, right? To make sure that it's not like some Terminator 2 Skynet, they're just going to blow us up shit. But it's like, no, I think there's a certain thing about, our network, our focus being like facilitating that relationship between humanity and AI, right? And I know that's kind of a deep thing, but I really think it's fundamental and important to the future of not only AI, but of the human race. That's what's important to us. Honestly, AI is meant to be an enabler and empowering force for us, for humanity. It's supposed to be, in my mind, or has the potential to be a renaissance moment where we can see humanity perform. We can see humanity reach potential that we never could reach before.
10x level ups. Big leaps, like hockey stick leaps. No, I agree. JD, you're on a roll here. We got to take a quick break, though. Give a huge shout out to our sponsor of the show, Prime XBT. And when we get back, we're going to keep buzzing on Raiinmaker and jump into how AI and crypto intertwine with each other and how two incredible pieces of tech can really move the future. But until then, huge shout out to Prime XBT, longtime friends of cryptonews.com and longtime sponsors of the Crypto News Pod. We love Prime XBT as they offer a robust trading system for both beginners and professional traders. It doesn't matter if you're a rookie or a vet, you can easily design and customize your layouts and widgets to best fit your trading style. Prime XBT is also running an exclusive promo for listeners of the Crypto News podcast. Use the promo code CryptoNews50, that is CryptoNews50, all one word, to receive 50% of your deposit credited to your trading account. Again, that is CryptoNews50, all one word, to receive 50% of your deposit credited to your trading account. Now back to the show with JD. I want to talk about, again, this has been discussed many times. I'm very curious and passionate, maybe passionate's a bit of a big word, but it definitely gets me excited, sort of the intersection of AI and crypto and how, incredible companies like yours, like Raiinmaker, can actually use those two pieces of tech together. Because a lot of companies are using they got your blockchain and you got your AI, but not a lot of the time they're really moving and grooving together. I'd love if you could discuss how you guys at Raiinmaker are using both pieces of tech and sort of just your future outlook in regards to how both crypto and AI can work together in the future.
Yeah, it's interesting. The one thing that we spent a lot of time thinking about, which we still spend a lot of time thinking about, is, what is that real organic relationship between the confluence of these two technologies? Like, where can AI really benefit Web3 or crypto or blockchain, and that, that revolution that we've all been building towards for, that financial technology revolution that we've all been building towards for many years. Yep. And then conversely, how can some of those technologies that we've already all been building actually find an applicable value and kind of facilitating the leap forward with AI, which again, I think it comes down to like human empowerment, man. Like, to me, that's, at least for me, what's most exciting about it. I think there's a lot of different applications, whether it's, military or large language models, or I don't know. I mean, there's literally like a blue ocean of different stuff, like this Cambrian explosion of innovation that's happening around AI. What I think, in particular is of interest to us and what we can do that's unique is that our network is not an EVM chain. It's a custom consensus mechanism. So it's a federated hybrid blockchain architecture. So I don't want to get too deep in the sauce, because I don't know if your users or your listeners are super technical. But what that means is there's permissioned and permissionless layers that form almost like a layer cake, our network. And so that first layer, just to kind of come back to what we're talking about on the mobile device, with a user downloads Raiinmaker, they sign up as a validator. Every action they do on the application is actually being signed with their own keys. And that's actually the first layer of the network. So Matt and 100,000 other people, as you're basically training AI models, you're basically just doing stuff on Raiinmaker app on the network, that the network data is actually really fundamentally first, those user actions being signed with their keys. It's extremely decentralized. It's not me. It's not the network. There's no centralized authority that's determining what is that data that's being signed. That is that fundamental first building block of the network, which is say, Matt did this thing, and he's signing proof on chain that you did this thing. And now when you start to think about with AI and models and training and data, well, it's come back to what we said earlier in this conversation. The value of the model is directly correlated to the value of the data that's training it. And if you think about, well, what is blockchain good at, at its core, it's talking about an immutable ledger of data, right? So when you look at those two things, to me, it's okay, well, there's really no system that's better at scale to say on a global basis, this is what occurred. If we're feeding all this data into a model, we can see on chain a ledger of exactly what's happened across an entire network across the planet, feeding into, not just one model, but thousands or tens of thousands or millions of models coming with being trained with data from billions of people. I mean, that's the future of where we're headed. And it's just EVM chains are not meant to support that. That's not what they were built for. Ethereum was not built. You can try to layer up. It's not meant for that. It never was meant for that. Now we can leverage, our network actually finalizes consensus by hashing proof on Bitcoin, Ethereum, Base, BNB. We're rotating between those networks so we can leverage the security and hash power of those networks. But our actual infrastructure is hyper scalable, way more economically efficient and way more modular and flexible than other blockchain protocols and networks that, again, we're not built for this type of use case. Yeah. We feel like our network has an advantage of what we can do over these chains that are just even EVM L2s and stuff, which again, we're utilizing that around things like the coin token, which is the thing that has utility that runs our protocol. But it's not, to me, like an EVM chain, even an L2 and L3 is still ultimately when you really do the math, it ends up running into that scaling problem at some point in some form or fashion. because it wasn't architected with this in mind, because it's not built for that. It's great for what like there's a whole wave of innovation and products that it supports extremely well. And I think there's no denying that it's placed there. But I think what we feel like is we have a unique protocol that can play a role in facilitating scalable AI infrastructure across the planet.
I love that. We are getting a little tight for time here. A couple more questions, mate, and then we'll wrap up. I want to talk about KYC. This is something that you and the team are passionate about. The importance of KYC compliance, and KYC, folks, is know your customer. Anytime you do any type of financial transaction, I mean, I guess not any type, but anytime you're using, global banks or Swift or anything like that, you need to pass some type of KYC, which just, lets all parties involved know that you are not some, terrorist, or, you're passing AML, anti-money laundering as well. Anytime, like I said, anytime you do anything financially related, you got to do that. A lot of times in crypto, a lot of times in traditional Web2, you KYC, they have all your data and they keep all your data. And I know this is something you're very passionate more so about the destruction of data after verification. I'd love if you could talk a little bit more about this.
Yeah, no, I'm sure my lawyers would love to hear you say that I'm passionate about KYC. I mean, look, I think it's important to have, inside of these networks that we're building, we have to develop better systems for reputation and identity. Honestly, the biggest focus I can say in Raiinmaker, and I kind of glossed over it, is like, honestly, AI reputation is where 100% of our focus is right now. And again, taking this idea of Matt as a human on our network and his ability to contribute to AI, like there's an actual reputational score that we're developing, that we're rolling out, where inside of a network environment, we want to understand the value of each person. And I also, at the core, we have to know that you're a human, right? Or that this node or this instance is actually being run by an individual human. And the only way to really know that reasonably well, other than like the WorldCoin, like scan your eyeball thing, which again is like, I don't necessarily have as big of a beef with it, but it's understandable why it feels a little like panopticon. KYC and using like existing infrastructure, but in a more decentralized way, is essentially what we're doing. So user comes into our system, whether it's on Raiinmaker app or on coin.ai, where they're running just, validator nodes and playing the game there. They pass KYC. There's a hash on chain that's the proof that like Matt is over 18. He's not in a sanctioned country. He's legit. Whatever those atomic factors are that the network needs to know, if anyone needs to check, like, who is Matt? They don't need Matt's name. They don't need his address. They don't need his passport number. They don't need any of that. But they just need to know, is Matt human? Is Matt over 18? He's not in North Korea, right? Unfortunately, I have nothing against the North Koreans, but they've got some beef going on with my government, so we don't mess around with them, unfortunately. I know, because humans are humans, bro. It's like governments are doing their thing and they're fighting, they're doing their dance, but ordinary people are, we're doing our best just to create good lives, man. Just to live and, love and have families and, have dreams and pursue those dreams. And I think most humans across the planet share that, regardless of their country or religion or race or whatever. Like, that's something fundamentally human. Now, governments and the power game that is being played in various, regional and global corridors, like that's individual humans at the most levels of society, have nothing to do with that. We just kind of have to exist inside that sea. So, and we're going to talk about politics. I'll try to veer back to KYC. But anyways, we keep it, we keep it hash on chain. The PII then is destroyed. Not held by Raiinmaker or any of our infrastructure. And just like that, like the user has proven that they're human, that they're not in a sanctioned jurisdiction, all the key things that you need to know to be safe to transact, on our network. But we're not like holding on to that valuable data that could be a honeypot, or that could expose, or make, create a vulnerability for that individual user. So that's the way that we've architected it. And I think there's a value, the bigger picture value is more about, human reputation. And I think there's ways that we're developing beyond like hey, you need a national ID to prove that you're human. And I think that's where the WorldCoin thing is kind of interesting, like, because there's a lot of the planet that's not only unbanked, but doesn't even have proper like ID. Like if you've ever tried to KYC 25,000 Nigerians, because we have, and it's not an easy thing to do, but we did it. But I'm saying, my point is, that's not something I wish upon my worst enemies. 100%. And it's kind of like a choke point, or it's a barrier to like being able to do this at scale across the entire planet, because there's large segments of the world that their infrastructure is not like the US and Canada. They don't just roll out of bed and here's my here's my clear driver's license with my picture that came from the DMV. And even if our DMV seems broken as hell in the US or in California, like it really is,
it works at least.
It's still way better than what you got on most of the planet. So that's what I think about KYC.
I love that. Last question here, mate. How can people get involved? Any news popping off over the next little bit? Again, you and I are airing about 4 or 5 days before your episode is going to air. But how can people get involved? Where can they hit you up? And any news popping off over the next couple of days, weeks, months?
Well, by the time you see this, the NFT mint will be over on Magic Eden, but we passed 300,000 NFTs minted. We did a base network NFT mint on a utility NFT where the holder of it actually has a multiplier on their validator node. So they connect their wallet to coin.ai with that NFT, and they're earning like a multiplier on the number of tokens they're mining on the network based on, just again, the reputation of they're an early user and they minted this NFT. So that mint is ending in the next hour from now. But I believe there will be people who will be out there reselling them potentially. I don't even know how that's working. I have a team that is kind of focused on what we're doing with Magic Eden there. But there is that NFT mint that we just finished, which is super successful, 300,000 mints, 85,000 wallets or something. So that's an awesome kind of milestone our team just hit. We are coming up towards the release of our utility token here in the next few months. That's coming. But I think for news and updates, best thing is, follow us on socials, Raiinmaker on X, Telegram, Discord. You can follow me personally, although I don't post a ton, but what I do post, I try to keep it relevant and valuable. And I think that's the main way to stay up to date with what the company's doing.
I love it. And folks, as always, we will include everything in the show notes to Raiinmaker and JD. JD, really appreciate this. This was an absolute treat of an episode, and pumped to meet you next week in lovely Toronto. It's nice being in the home base sometime. Not all the time, but sometimes. And this is one of these weeks, so I'm very grateful because it's nice, not having to be in a hotel, your own bed. So pumped to meet you in person. We'll tear it up next week, and can't wait for round 2 on the pod.
Sounds good. Thanks, Matt.
Folks, what an episode with JD Seraphine, founder and CEO of Raiinmaker and Vision Tree. We touched a little bit of everything: blockchain's influence on the entertainment industry, merging crypto and AI, DePIN, KYC, democratizing data creation and collection, training AI models, setting up nodes, you name it. Huge shout out to JD and the team for making this happen. If you guys enjoyed this one, I hope you did. Please do subscribe. That would mean the world to my team and I. Speaking to the team, love you guys so much. Thank you for everything. Eustace, you are the man as always. And back to the listeners, love you guys. Keep on growing those bags. Keep on staying healthy, wealthy, and happy. And go touch some grass. We got another month or so of the lovely hot weather. Get outside, have some fun. Love you all, and see you on the next one. Ciao.